What's up guys, Artem MMA Analysis here, and by the time that this video comes out, Jack Hermansson versus Sean Strickland will have just finished, and now we'll be looking forward to the second pay-per-view of the year, UFC 271, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2, World Middleweight Championship on the line, and I can't wait for the fight, for the belt, man. I'm going to be going over the entire card here, just previews, predictions based on my knowledge. This is no research done prior to making my picks, but I will be making my picks prior to this now. But if you want to hear some more concrete picks, some picks that I've made with research, then you probably want to wait a couple of days, 2 or 3 days from now, when I've actually got those properly researched picks out into the world. But with that being said, let's move on. Let's look at this 15 fight card. Jeremiah Wells versus Mike Mathetha. Dude, of course I'm going with Mike Mathetha. He's from New Zealand. I'm from New Zealand. Mike Mathetha has over 100 kickboxing fights. He's fought in China. He's fought in Glory Kickboxing as well. He's got a pretty good record there. I can't really remember it, but it's like 57 wins and 16 losses or something like that. Lots of kickboxing experience. On the other hand, Jeremiah Wells just knocked out Wiley Alves, who Jack Della Maddalena was meant to make his debut against. But prior to that, he's been fighting over at Cage Fury. He's taken this fight on relatively short notice, as Mike Mathetha was meant to fight Ryan Kosuke, but that didn't end up happening. I'm going Mike Mathetha. I think he's going to be an underdog as well. Not many people are really picking it, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to Mike Mathetha versus Jeremiah Wells. Picking Mike Mathetha to win that one there. Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Sergey Morozov. We've already got odds out for this one, and Douglas Silva de Andrade is almost a plus 200 underdog. Wow, okay, very interesting there. Douglas Silva de Andrade just knocked out Gaetano Parolo. I mean, as he was kind of expected to. I think Gaetano had only, it wasn't his UFC debut, but it's like a second fight in UFC. He's got a loss to Lerone Murphy, kind of happens. Win over Ridham Barrel, pretty good win, I guess. Lost to Piotr Jan, beat Marlon Vera. He's got good wins. He's got wins that have aged well. He's got losses that have aged well pretty as well. So again, Morozov coming off a win over Khalid Taha. Lost to Umar Nurmagomedov, that kind of happens. Prior to that, man, he was fighting decent guys, especially Josh Rittenhouse, Alexander Ositrov, and this guy here, who actually, no, he's got a very similar name to the bantamweight champion over at Eagle FC. But with that being said, I think it's tough to choose against Sergey Morozov, but Douglas Silva de Andrade is pretty solid as well. I'm going to go Morozov by decision on this one. Definitely need to research the card. This next one I'm pretty confident in. I think AJ Dobson is going to get the job done here. He's only a slight favourite, but he's got a very good win over Hashim Akaga. Prior to that, he's beaten a couple of relatively decent level guys over on the regional scene. I think he actually headlined that Dana White's Contender Series card 4 months ago. On the other hand, we've got Jacob Malkoun, who beat Abdul Razak Al Hassani, out-wrestled him, even though he's got a little bit of a wrestling background, but he's also got a boxing background as well. Lost to Phil Hawes. Prior to that, was just beating guys over on the Australian regional scene. The Eternal MMA, very good Australian MMA kind of company there. But yeah, AJ Dobson by KO is the pick, man. I think this fight could definitely go the distance, in my opinion. AJ Dobson by decision at the moment is my pick. But with that being said, we're moving on. Carlos Ulberg versus Fabio Cherant. I'm picking Carlos Ulberg because he's from New Zealand. I'm very surprised that the odds are this far spread. I don't think that Fabio, the Water Buffalo Cherant, is someone to overlook whatsoever, considering Carlos Ulberg, dude, that fight with Kennedy Nzechukwu was something else, man. He was throwing bombs, not really, he's just throwing so much volume. He threw over a couple of hundred strikes, I think, within a round and a half before he got knocked out by Kennedy. Hopefully he's worked on his defense there. Hopefully he's going to be a little bit more reserved in this one. He's taken 10 months off. I think he's going to be a lot better moving in. But yeah, Fabio Cherant on the other hand, pretty good striking as well. I think he hurt William Knight before he knocked him out cold. He lost to Alonzo Mendefield, but he does have a win over. He doesn't have a win in the UFC. I thought he did. Wow, that's interesting. But yeah, Carlos Ulberg, I do think he's going to win. I do think he's going to win by knockout, but it's very, very interesting how this fight's going to play out. Carlos Ulberg with a very extensive kickboxing background as well. Renato Moicano versus Alexander Hernandez. Renato Moicano by submission or Alexander Hernandez by KO is probably a pretty safe pick. I would say that the fight's probably not going to go the distance. As for the pick, Renato Moicano coming off a submission over Jai Herbert. Alexander Hernandez knocked out Mike Breeden in the first round. There was a late notice fight there. He's got a couple of alright wins. He lost to Drew Dober by KO. Kind of happens really, but both guys don't really have the greatest momentum coming into this bout. Alexander Hernandez at one point was quite hyped up. Well, he was definitely talking a lot of smack about Donald Cerrone before he got humbled there. This is a close fight. As I said, Hernandez by KO, Moicano by submission. Not really too sure how I think that this fight is actually going to go. I might actually lean the Hernandez side for now, but we'll see what happens later on. Ronnie Lawrence versus Mana Martinez. I really want Mana Martinez to win this one here. I think he's actually a great prospect, a guy to look out for. Multiple knockouts in the first round. Multiple knockouts within a minute as well. I think most of his wins are actually by knockout. But he didn't really look that great against Drago Rodriguez on the Dana White's Contender Series when he got taken to the ground. And that's what Ronnie Lawrence is going to do. I think he's got like about 10 minutes of control time over Jose Johnson in that decision as well. And I think the same thing with Vince Cachero. The fighting lasted like 1.5 rounds, so I think he had like 5 minutes of control time there. Ronnie Lawrence is going to look to take the fight to the ground, and I do think he's going to get it there. I think Ronnie Lawrence by decision or Mana Martinez by knockout is a pretty safe pick here. Mana Martinez, the people picking him are not picking him by knockout. That surprises me like a lot, because Mana Martinez, if he's going to win by knockout, man. He's got a 32 second win by knockout over Jose Johnson, 1 minute win over Casey Jones. And yeah, just man, he's got power in those hands. He didn't really show it over Guido Canidi whatsoever, but he had a lot going on in that fight, man. I think we're going to see a more motivated Mana Martinez. With it being said, though, I will be picking Ronnie Lawrence to win. Maxim Grishin versus William Knight. I personally actually have William Knight to win this fight, but I think he's going to be the underdog coming into this one here. Maxim coming off the loss to Dustin Jacoby, who's a kickboxer. He's got a couple of good wins in the UFC as well. I think he's fought in PFL. Yeah, as I was just saying that, I was going over it. William Knight, on the other hand, just knocked out he won over Alonzo Munifield by decision. Close decision as well from memory. Knocked out Fabio Cherant, lost to Dalton Jung, and has a couple of other pretty good wins there. Win over Cody Brundage as well, who I think is actually still in the UFC. Maxim Grishin is going to be a lot taller than him though. But I think Knight's going to be able to find the range. Oh, I'm wrong. Wow, I'm very surprised. I thought more people were picking Grishin in that fight, but no. Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. I think Alex Perez has... he's got a very good chance of winning this fight here. This fight's taking place at flyweight. Matt Schnell making his return after fighting up at bantamweight against Rogério Bontorin, where he lost by decision. Rogério Bontorin still a very top prospect in the flyweight division, though. Not really the worst loss. On the other hand, Alex Perez lost to Davison Figueiredo about a year ago. He's finally making his return. I think he had a lot of cancelled fights in that time. But prior to that, he was on a little bit of a decent run, man. But yeah, a lot of cancelled fights for poor Alex Perez. Let's hope that fight gets made, and hopefully we see Alex Perez. I think we're going to see Alex Perez win, man. Casey O'Neill versus Roxanne Modafferi. They're not doing any favours for Roxanne Modafferi whatsoever, but they are moving Casey O'Neill up the rankings. I think we're going to see Casey O'Neill win by TKO, by ground and pound. A lot of people thought that Taylor Santos was going to be able to finish Roxanne Modafferi. She wasn't. So we're going to see how Casey O'Neill deals with her, but I do think Casey O'Neill is just going to take her down, ground and pound her out to a win here. But I think they're trying to push Casey O'Neill, in my opinion, still a little bit too quickly, man. I think we should be building up. She's only 24 years old. You don't really want to get her stuck in the top 5, and she's got to constantly fight top 5 opponents when she's still building her way up, man. Only 24 years old, Casey O'Neill, by KO, though, by ground and pound, in my opinion. I think this is Roxanne Modafferi's retirement fight as well. With that being said, they really should have just found another veteran for Roxanne, maybe moved her up to 135 to fight a very experienced fighter, maybe even down to 115. I can't really think of any names on the top of my head, but you guys know what I mean, man. Give her a veteran versus veteran matchup, not up against an up-and-comer 8-0 24-year-old. But Jared Vanderaa versus Andrei Arlovski. Andrei Arlovski 4-1 in his last 5. Very legendary career. Building on it, in my opinion, even though he is fighting lower-level competition in the heavyweight division. I think that the UFC knows that Andrei Arlovski doesn't really have the biggest chance to beat the top 15 of the UFC division as of right now, considering he is 43 years old. But he's still a legend, and he's still beating a lot of these up-and-coming guys in the heavyweight division. Win over Carlos Felipe. Pretty good win, but I don't really rate Carlos split decision Felipe that highly, in my opinion. Win over Chase Sherman. Lost to Tom Aspinall. I mean, that kind of happens. Tom Aspinall, I think, is actually like top 10 in the UFC right now. Win over Tanner Boza. Win over Felipe Lins as well. It's definitely worth noting he hasn't finished anyone for a very long time. I think the last finish he had was way back in like 2017. Am I correct? Oh, okay, we're going further back than I thought. 2015 is his last finish over Travis Brown. Let's see if we can get Andrei Arlovski a finish, guys. I'm going to go with Andrei Arlovski by KO, even though Justin Puffer wasn't able to get the job done. Oh, man. Andrei Arlovski by KO, just for the old days, man. Let's go, Andrei. I mean, he's got a lot of decision wins, but let's just go. Nasrat Haqparast versus Bobby Green. As much as I like Nasrat, and much as I respect Nasrat for what he's done, especially in the Dan Hooker fight, he took that fight. He had a lot going on in his life. He still made it. He made the weight in only a couple of days as well, just like Dan Hooker did. Not really a bad loss considering Dan Hooker's like top 10 in the lightweight division and is my favorite fighter. Let's be honest. But Bobby Green, on the other hand, he's looked good. He's like coming off a couple of losses. He knocked out Eli Quinter, I think, in the first round. He lost to Hafi Al-Fiziev, even though he won the last round. He lost to Thiago Moises. I mean, yeah, not really the greatest loss there. But apart from that, he's got a couple of good wins. He's 35, and I think he's actually going to make a run for the top 15 if he keeps it up. Yeah, let's see what he can do. Nasrat Haqparast, definitely an up-and-coming guy. Couple of good wins, but the problem is with his wins, they have not aged very well whatsoever. Rafa Garcia went on a losing streak after Nasrat beat him. Alex Munoz went on a losing streak after he beat him. Lost to Drew Dober by KO. I mean, not really the greatest look either. Joaquim Silva win. That's pretty good as well. I mean, he's got good wins on his record, but at the same time, he's also been knocked out by Drew Dober. Yeah, I think Bobby Green's, he's gonna put on a pace. That's what he does. He puts on a pace, and he applies he throws a lot of strikes. Then we're gonna see Bobby Green. But Nasrat Haqparast could just knock him out as well. I'm gonna go Bobby Green. I'm gonna go by decision or second or third round KO. Kyler Phillips versus Marcelo Rojo. In my opinion, they could have put a better fight on the main event, on the main card, but I mean, it happens. Kyler Phillips, in my opinion, it was a draw against Hylian Fiver, but you've got to admit, man, he threw that fight so bad. He had him so hurt in the first round, and he started throwing spinning kicks. He started throwing spinning punches. He just started doing stupid stuff that ended up costing him the entire fight. He couldn't finish Hylian Fiver in the second round with all the spinning moves, and he just gassed himself out. Hylian Fiver ended up winning that fight. You've got to admit, Kyler Phillips showed no fight IQ whatsoever in that Hylian Fiver fight, and that does worry me. If he gets Marcelo Rojo injured, and he's trying to go for some crazy spinning kick finish, and he's blowing his gas tank doing it, then I'm going to be very concerned. And I think there's a live bet on Marcelo Rojo. I mean, at one point, Hylian Fiver was like plus 900 to win. I think it was coming into like the second or third round. But with that being said, man, Kyler Phillips, I do think he's a great prospect. He did show, honestly, he really disappointed me in this Hylian Fiver fight. He showed no fight IQ whatsoever, and it's definitely worth noting that he didn't like at all. But I do think he is going to knock out Marcelo Rojo. He's got a win over Song Yadong, win over Cameron Else. I mean, yeah, he's got a win over Gabriel Silva and a win over an LFA as well. Just don't disappoint me, Kyler Phillips. I'm going to go Kyler Phillips by KO. With that being said, we're going Derek Brunson versus Jared Cannonier, a fight I am very torn on. I'm torn on this fight. I don't know who's going to win. Jared Cannonier had a relatively good performance against Robert Whittaker for a couple of rounds. He had a good performance against Calvin Gastelum, even dropped Calvin Gastelum at one point, I believe, as well. I mean, who does that? Derek Brunson, on the other hand, submitted Darren Till. He's got one over Kevin Holland, Edmund Shabazian, Ian Heinisch, Elias Theodorou. I mean, Derek Brunson, man, this is a title eliminator, obviously. Especially for Derek Brunson, I think if he wins, he deserves that title shot as well. He deserves another shot at Israel Adesanya or Robert Whittaker, whoever wins that fight. I do actually think Derek Brunson is going to win this fight at the moment. It'll be very interesting to see what other cappers are going to be picking, but I will go Derek Brunson by a decision. I think he's just going to take down Jared Cannonier and win a decision with his wrestling, because that's what he's good at. He's good at wrestling. Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. I am going to go with Derek Lewis in this one here. Tai Tuivasa, young up-and-coming guy. I do think it's just a little bit too much of a jump up in competition for him. I don't think he's going to be scared of Derek Lewis, but if he is scared of Derek Lewis, then I will be quite surprised. I mean, I'll be scared of Derek Lewis, but and Tai Tuivasa is a different human, you know what I mean? But he's got a win over Chris Daukaus. He knocked him out. It was a pretty good fight, actually. He lost to Cyril Garn, but prior to that, knocked out Curtis Blades, knocked out Alexei Olenek, and beat Ali Latifi by a decision. Tai Tuivasa, on the other hand, man, went on a 3-fight losing streak, which is relatively concerning, but he bounced back. He beat Stefan Struve, he beat Harry Hunsager, he knocked out Greg Hardy. I mean, Derek Lewis respects that. I respect that. if you know, you know. And he knocked out Augusto Sakai, but now he's taking on Derek Lewis, a guy that literally just fought for an interim title fight only a couple of fights ago. Man, Taito Ivasa's really trying to get in there with the big dogs, and I think if he gets a win over Derek Lewis, then we're going to have a heavyweight superstar on our hands. But I'm going Derek Lewis, and I'm going Derek Lewis by KO. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. I'm going Israel Adesanya. I do think that the line is too wide. I mean, Israel Adesanya shouldn't be minus 275. I don't think there's probably value on the underdog here from Robert Whittaker. If you're plus 200, if he actually is plus 220, I am surprised. I am going Israel Adesanya, but Robert Whittaker's definitely got a path to victory here. He's gone on 3 great performances over Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, Calvin Gastelum. Prior to that, he lost to Israel Adesanya and beat Yoel Romero in a fight which Yoel Romero won, in my opinion. But apart from that, yeah, he looked great in his last 3 fights. Israel Adesanya, on the other hand, the only blemish on his record is when he moved up to fight Jan Blachowicz, didn't quite go his way. He beat Marvin Vettori relatively dominantly. I think it was 50-45 all around. Pretty good fight there. Prior to that, he knocked out Paulo Costa, beat Yoel Romero, and knocked out Robert Whittaker. What a great resume he's building, let's be honest, guys. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Israel Adesanya. He fights out of City Kickboxing in New Zealand. Unfortunately, this is going to be very biased to Israel Adesanya because of that, but I do think Israel Adesanya is going to win. Either way, Robert Whittaker, he's going to be looking to use the wrestling. He's going to be looking to try and pressure Israel. He's going to be trying to close the gap as well. As we do know, Israel Adesanya has that a big reach advantage. He's very good at picking his shots as well. He's got great kickboxing. Obviously, 75-5 kickboxing record. I think 5-0 boxing record as well. I'm going to Rozanne. Yeah. There's a good chance the fight goes the distance. Oh, man. I think he's going to end up finding the knockout. I do think he's going to knock out Robert Whittaker. He doesn't have the glass chin that Marvin Vettori does. I mean, Israel Adesanya technically knocked him out twice in their first fight. I mean, Marvin Vettori can take a punch, man. He was taking head kicks from Paulo Costa. So I can respect the fact that he went the distance, you know. Yeah, I'm going to go with Adesanya. I think I'm going to go by knockout as well. It's going to be a very good fight. I think it's going to be very big plus money on the knockout prop for Israel, so definitely could be something to look at. But, I mean, I'm not really betting at the moment, guys. I'm sticking out of it, and I'm just watching the fights. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I will be putting up timestamps eventually, and I'll leave you guys to it. Have a great day.